Hey guys, we are making a video today about how to get your real estate license in Georgia. I need to preface this with a few things. I'm no expert, right? So the way that I got my license is not necessarily the perfect way or the best way to get your license. It is just the way that I passed my test and became a realtor in Atlanta. And that's another thing that you should remember, is that this is Atlanta specific. Some of the tips that I'll give you today definitely are applicable to getting your license across the country, but I'm definitely gonna be doing a little bit more of a focus on Atlanta real estate agents. So I've actually had a lot of people reach out to me, just friends, asking how I got my license and what are the steps, and you try to text it to them and give them all the tips, but there's really surprisingly so much that goes into getting your license that we figured that we'd just make a video about it. I actually had a lot of friends and family tell me that I would be a good real estate agent, and I always brushed it off because I was like, I just moved to Atlanta 4 years ago. I barely know how to get around the city myself. I don't know all the different boroughs and the price, but I don't even know what the real estate market is like. I have no experience in that whatsoever, so it kind of scared me. And then on top of that, just to be quite honest, I thought that real estate agents were a little cheesy. Didn't want to put my face on a Frisbee or hand out keychains with my phone number on. I was just like, no thanks. And I also thought that anybody could be an agent. I thought it was probably just really easy. I've seen so many people that I know become agents, and I just really never gave them enough credit for what goes into actually becoming one. Now I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. I got licensed in August of last year. Yep. I've had my license for 10 months. That's why this video is not about how to be a realtor in Atlanta or how to be a realtor in general. This is just about how to get your license. And now that's one thing that we should talk about first before we get any further. There is a difference between a real estate agent, a real estate salesperson, and a realtor. So a real estate agent, they have taken those 75 hours of an accredited course in order to take the real estate state exam. And then you pass the exam, pay for your license, and then you are legally allowed to sell real estate in Georgia. A realtor takes that license and they join the National Association of Realtors. It's essentially an organization that holds you to a higher standard. You have to obey a certain code of ethics. You take continued education, and you have to pay a little bit of a pricey fee in order to be a part of that organization. But my brokerage actually required that I become a realtor. And another little silly thing that just always drives me crazy, it's not realtor, it's realtor. I know, it's stupid, but so let's not drag it out any further. These are the steps that I took in order to become a real estate agent in Atlanta. Now, something that you should know is this business is, I would say, 100% based on self-motivation. And because this business is such a self-starter business, you really have to be okay with asking for help. Do not be afraid to reach out and get advice from somebody. So the first thing that I would recommend doing, and what I did, is I looked into my sphere. I said, okay, who do I know that's an agent? Who do I know that's really successful, and I'd like to model my career after them? I reached out to him and I asked him to take him to lunch and got him some coffee, and I just asked if I could sit down and pick his brain a little bit. Let me tell you, half the things that he was saying I totally did not understand. I mean, he was talking about FMLS, CMAs, managing broker. I didn't know what any of those things were. There was one thing that I took away from it. He said that I needed to enroll in class. So I thought, no big deal, I'll just take class and then get my license. No, you have to take 75 hours of an accredited course, and then you have to pass a state exam. I'm sorry, what? I mean, I thought that school was done, that ship has sailed. So let's start with the classes that you have to take before you can even qualify to take that state exam. Now, I want to preface the remainder of this video by saying that if you are thinking about doing this, I highly recommend setting aside a big chunk of time in your life to be able to do this, and setting aside some money. I'm an actor, and so I was able to take some time off, and it took me about 2.5, 3 months or so to get through with the classes and to pass the state exam. And I actually spent a couple of $1,000s between the textbook, the classes, the mileage to and from my home to class, the cram courses, the practice tests online. There was so much that went into it. It ended up actually costing a pretty penny. I knew so many people that were in class with me that were working moms or dads that had full-time careers, and then they were going to night school with me. And I just have so much respect for those people. I don't know how they were able to do it, but those people are truly the real superheroes. So you're gonna have the option to either take classes online or in person. And let me just say, I highly recommend taking classes in person. You have to pass 75 hours of a Georgia Real Estate Commission approved and accredited course. Now, a really scary statistic that we were told on the first day of class is that actually 70% of people who take the online course do not pass the state exam. 70%, I thought that was insane. So I enrolled in the Barney Fletcher School, and so this was recommended to me from my colleague who I took out to lunch and picked his brain. And I'm so glad that I did. My instructor was fantastic, and she gave us so many goofy little ways to remember vocabulary and different practices and ways to remember the law that really helped on that final test. So it was essentially me and 20 other realtor hopefuls from so many different walks of life, which was so fun. I did 3 days a week, 4 hours a night, and it lasted for about, like I said, 2.5, 3 months. So they give you a textbook and a workbook that you're gonna be working through as you go, and the teacher's gonna be totally guiding you through it. Do not fall behind. This is something that a lot of us did in class. It can be really overwhelming if you haven't been used to reading a textbook in a long time. And I really recommend having flashcards. I noticed that people in class who were doing really well were, as we were going, writing down vocabulary, law, anything that was important, and they were constantly quizzing themselves. It's a ton of material to take in. I personally took notes on my laptop while I was in class. That's just the way that I learn. And I also went on Quizlet.com and created online flashcards. There were people in class who were making physical note cards, and I would see them quizzing themselves before the class would start. And it was amazing to see that those people actually did the best on the class exam. Hold the phone, class exam? Yes, we have to take a class exam before you can even qualify to take the state exam. Now you get 2 tries on this class exam, and it wasn't easy. I mean, I was stressed. My whole class was really stressed about this exam. And to be honest, I would say more than half of us didn't pass it the first time. I ended up doing really well, but I was able to focus so much of my attention and energy on this class because I did take the time off for it. The thing that scared me the most and everybody else in my class is that you only do get those 2 tries. So if you didn't pass it the second time, you would have to take the entire 75 hours all over again, which would have been, I mean, I loved my instructor, but I would not want to take that again if you paid me. So this next part is all about taking advantage of all the possible test prep that is out there for you before the exam. At Barney Fletcher, they have what's called a cram course, and if you're able to take this and you're in Atlanta, I highly recommend it. You have to pay for it. It's 2 days long, and you are stuck in a room, and it's exactly what it sounds like. You are cramming information from those 75 hours into 2 days. I'm not gonna lie, it's horrible. It's totally worth it, and I think it really helps before you take that class exam. Another thing that I know a lot of realtor hopefuls study with is this guy Prep Agent. Now he's a YouTuber, he's been really successful with this. And what he does is he just does practice vocab, practice quizzes. He will bring people on who are studying for the test, and you can see people take the practice quiz and you can kind of take it in real time. So what I would do is I would just play it in the background while I'm doing my makeup, while I'm getting ready in the morning. I would play it in the car. So anytime that I wasn't physically studying, I was always listening to vocab and just getting it in the back of my subconscious. Sounds crazy, but I think it really helped. Another thing that Barney Fletcher had is these practice tests with hundreds and hundreds of questions, which really reflect that state exam. So essentially, you're just gonna wanna do some sort of cram course, really be testing yourself with those flashcards and keep up with the reading as you're going along. And ultimately, you should be fine. And definitely make sure that you know the math portion backwards and forwards. Yep, there is a math portion of the test, and I know that probably scares a lot of people. It scared me. I'm not a really good math student. It's never been something that's come super easy to me. I've always had to have a tutor for math, and so what was so great about having an in-person class, I was able to look at people in the class who understood the math very well, and I could chat with them on the phone about it. I could chat with my teacher and just really try to hammer through some questions, but definitely you will see a large portion of math questions on that final exam. So the actual state exam, so this costs money every single time that you have to take it. For us in Georgia, it's $120 every time that you have to take the test. And in order to sign up for that test, you just go to goamp.com. On the day of the test, you'll need 2 forms of identification. They really don't let you bring anything into the room. They kind of act like they assume you're gonna be cheating. It's kind of a sketchy environment. You can literally only bring in a pencil, your calculator, and this sad little scratch paper that you probably will fill up back and forth. And it's this really sad, depressing room, and you're in there for what could be 4 hours if you take the entire time. So it's 152 questions or so, give or take. 52 of those questions are going to be state specific. So it's specific to Georgia in my case. And then the other 100 questions are applicable to real estate law across the nation. So you have to get at least a 75% or better in order to pass. And when you're done, they're gonna give you a little piece of paper and it literally will just say pass or fail. And if you passed it, they won't tell you what score you got, which is kind of annoying. But if you failed it, they'll let you know how many you got wrong, and you can kind of see where you're lacking and where you need to study. I actually was one question away from passing my first time. It sucked so bad. I cried so hard on the way home because I actually chose to take my test out in Macon, which is about an hour and a half away from Atlanta, because I just wanted to get it done as soon as possible. There's only so many different locations you can take the test, and I had studied my butt off and I had dedicated so much of my time to it. So to fail by one question, I would have rather failed by 100 questions. I would rather just feel like I didn't know it at all versus I was so close. So the second I got back in the car, I signed up for the test, this next soonest possible one, which was in about a week and a half. And the second that I got home, I let myself be depressed and go to bed. And then the next day, I didn't speak to a single person for about a week and a half. So I just studied from morning to night, quizzed myself. And that next time that I took the test, I was one of the first people done. I finished it in about 2.5 hours or so. It was the best feeling in the world. And it just made so much more sense that second time around. So it's totally fine if you don't pass it the first time. I know a ton of people who didn't. It's a challenging test. But even when I passed my test, I still didn't have an active license, which sounds nuts. Make sure that you hold on to that score sheet because that's actually something that you will need in order to set your status as active. So there are 4 steps now that you have to take before you can become a licensed agent in Atlanta. So first, you're gonna have to get a background check. This can be a little tedious because you have to find a police station that actually runs background checks. I ended up going to one that was out in East Point. You have to bring a $10 money order and you have to go on a certain time, wait in line. It can be a little annoying, but it's one of those steps that you have to take. Next, you'll need to get a lawful presence affidavit. You can find this on the Georgia Real Estate Commission website, and you're gonna have to get this notarized. I just went to the bank. It was pretty easy. They just stamp it, and it essentially says that you're a citizen of the US and that you are a resident in Atlanta. So you actually have to be sponsored by a broker in order to set your license to active. And so there's so many different brokers that you can go to in Atlanta. Obviously, if you're anywhere else in the nation, there's tons of different firms that you can be with. In Atlanta specifically, there's Berkshire Hathaway, Keller Williams, Sotheby's Fine Homes, Atlanta International, Compass. There's so many firms that you can go with, and so I always recommend going and interviewing at a couple of different ones and seeing where you would really fit. Make sure you're asking them what sort of training do they do in the beginning, what sort of coaching do they provide, because when you first get your license, you're all of a sudden gonna be like, I have this, now what do I do with it? And so it's really awesome to be a part of a firm that really guides you and provides a lot of material to get you started. And so once you sign on with the broker and you've done your interview, they can fill out a sponsoring broker form, and you have to bring that back to one of those licensing offices along with your $170 to purchase your license, that lawful presence affidavit, and your passing score sheet when you pass the exam. So when you have all those 4 things and you turn it in, they'll give you a wall license, and then you're a real estate agent. So I know that was a lot. It probably might be a little bit overwhelming, but it's definitely possible. There are 80,000 agents in Atlanta alone, which is a crazy number, but that just shows that it is possible. And we've all been there. We've all had to take the test. We've all had to do the 75 hours, and then when you're done, you have to do 25 hours of post-license. And Christina was making fun of me in here because, you know, for some people, it's really easy. You know, you can do the online portion. You don't have to pay a ton of money. Maybe you don't need a ton of practice materials, but I needed a little bit of extra help, and if you're like that, cool. What else is good?
if you guys need to sell a house, definitely give Income Collective a call.
So all of this test taking, you know, passing the exam and everything, this is probably the least exciting part of your real estate career, but everybody has to get through it. And once you're through it, you're in this amazing world of so much potential to really create an incredible career for yourself. We meet so many amazing colleagues that are so inspiring in what they're able to accomplish. So this job has just been so unexpected for me, but such a big blessing in my life, and it might be in yours too. If you have any questions, we would love to be able to help you. You can reach out to us at InTown Collective on Instagram, or you can email us at partners@intowncollective.com. We would love to be able to help anybody. I think it's so important to be able to reach out. Like I said, ask for help. Do not be afraid to ask for advice. It's totally okay if you feel lost, because we all did at one point as well. So we're so excited for you if you've been thinking about becoming an agent, and thank you so much for watching, and bye.